Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Tuesday, February 18th, 2025, just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're continuing the FY26 budget testimony, and we're delighted to have with us the Vermont State Ethics Commission. So, and I don't think you've been in with this committee yet this year, so we will go around and introduce ourselves with you. So.
Hi, I'm Dave Iacovoni. I represent the Lamoille, Washington district. Good to see you.
Yeah, welcome. John Kosenska from Burke, and I represent the Essex Caledonia district.
Mike Nigro, I represent Bennington and Powell.
Tom Stevens from Waterbury, representing the Washington Chittenden district.
Good afternoon, Jim Harrison, Chittenden, Mendon, Killington, Pittsfield.
I'm Robin Shy from Middlebury.
Tiff Lindley from Burlington.
Wayne Rush representing Highgate, Franklin, Berkshire, and Richford.
Mike Lewis from Wyndham 4 District, Putney and Dunlap.
Next to Mike is Lynn Dickinson, who's been on the committee before from St. Albans Town, and then Trevor Squirrel sits here from Jericho and Underhill.
Nice to meet you.
So if you want to introduce yourself for the record, Christina, and take it away, please.
Sure. I'm Christina Siverett. I am the Executive Director of the Ethics Commission, and I'm from Barrie, although I do not represent Barrie.
In an ethical way, or
I don't represent them in any way, except for being. So, yes, so I thought maybe I'd just start with a little introduction about the Ethics Commission, what we do, and their history for the newer members. So the Ethics Commission is relatively new. It was started in 2018, and it was in reaction to Vermont kind of coming up at the bottom of the pile nationally when it came to our ethics accountability framework. We're getting Fs, we're just at the bottom of the pile. So the Ethics Commission was set up at that time. It was given one part-time executive director and no staff. Back then, we just gave kind of general ethics advice to anyone who wanted advice on a general ethics topic. There's no state code of ethics in place at the time. We could accept complaints and we could refer them on to other entities, which is still the case with a few modifications coming up. Starting in 2021, I think it is now, a few months after I came on, the state passed a statewide code of ethics that applies to all 3 branches of state government and everyone in those 3 branches of government. So starting at that time, our work really started to pick up. And what we do is primarily provide services, advisory services to people. So it comes in a few different ways. One is we provide training. At this point in time, we provide mainly online training. So once in a while, we can do in-person training, but just because of our staffing situation at the moment, we can't do more than that. We provide advice in the form of guidance. And so guidance is, can be more formal in the sense that somebody can send us an email and ask us for something in writing, or they can just call us up and say, hey, I have an ethics question. And that applies only to people who work in state government and now municipal government. But, starting back in 2021, it was just people who worked in state government. And then we also continue to provide complaint services, which is for anyone, regardless of where they work in government or a member of the public, can reach out to us and say, we have an ethics complaint involving state government. We'd like to file a complaint. We walk through them, whether it's actually a complaint that falls under the state code of ethics, whether they have sufficient facts to make those allegations, to send them on for further review. And we handle that in that manner up until last year. We also handle financial disclosures for executive officers, which now also includes sheriffs, and starting next year, county officials.
Okay.
So starting last year, we had a very large ethics bill that was passed. It's kind of a long time coming, that addresses municipal ethics. So in line with the state code of ethics, we now have a statewide municipal code of ethics that applies to every municipality in Vermont, meaning every town, village, or city. It doesn't apply to conservation districts or conservation districts, utility districts, those kind of districts. And it applies to certain municipal officers within those districts, within those municipalities. And then within that, there's another subset of municipal officers who have to take ethics training. We provide that training. We have an online training. The training requirement went into effect on January 1st. We have about 100 people a week taking the online training through our office. So started out with about 60 people a week. Now we're up to over 100 a week, but the average is about 100 people per week. We would like to be able to offer in-person training to municipalities in particular. And so that is going to be part of our request this year. So we provide advice and guidance to any municipal official who is subject to the statewide code of ethics. We also accept municipal complaints. So we cannot investigate those complaints. We refer them back to the municipality for investigation. Most of our work at this point for the last 6 weeks is made up of municipal requests. So those are both requests for guidance as well as complaints being filed with our office and complaint inquiries. I can say we've only had maybe 2 formal complaints filed with our office. We've had a number of complaint inquiries. We've had about 20-something requests for guidance from municipal officials. For comparison's sake, that was, the last 6 weeks, we had, 20-something just from municipal officials. For all of last year, we had 37.
So what are you seeing in terms of trends or kinds of complaints? Are they fairly consistent? Are they all over the map or?
I think in terms of state and municipal complaints, they pretty much revolve around conflicts of interest, preferential treatment, occasionally misuse of position. On the state level, we get a lot of questions about gifts and post-employment restrictions. Not as much on the municipal level because post-employment restrictions don't apply and because the gift rules are different.
I was curious, you had 23 complaints, but 47 complaint inquiries. Okay, inquiries. I was thinking investigation, so I was like, sorry. I'll take it back. So now the numbers weren't adding up.
Right.
So complaint inquiries is when somebody calls up and they want to file a complaint, but it doesn't result in an actual complaint being filed. Sometimes it's also a situation where a member of the public or a municipal official wants to file. They want to know if something that the municipality is doing is right or wrong, but they are not personally involved in it. We can kind of give them general advice in the context. Well, if you're going to file a complaint, this would be a valid complaint. You could, you need these kind of facts. You need this to move forward with it or not. So it kind of like is a bit of a catch-all, but somebody has called us and they're interested in knowing, whether certain conduct would make a valid basis for a complaint, but it doesn't actually result in a complaint.
And how do you work with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns? Because there's got to be that, I'm sure they call there too, or.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is, they were very much against the municipal ethics bill last year. And during that process, it came to light that they are insurers, and I'm sure that's common knowledge for a lot of people. It was not for us when we started the discussions with them. So initially, we consulted with them on the bill that was being put forward. They essentially didn't want it at all. So during the course of those discussions, we kind of came to the realization that as insurers, they have a financial interest in ethics legislation and also in complaints specifically. And so, in addition to being lobbyists, I mean, they have many different hats, but they're kind of all rolled into one organization. So they do provide training and advice. They also lobby and they're also insurers. And so for as long as those three kind of functions are combined, we are working with them at a very much an arm's length.
There's a conflict of interest.
There's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
And I'll say that, over the years, before we took on these municipal responsibilities, we've had a number of municipal officials calling us for advice. And then we'd say, oh, just have you tried Secretary of State's office, but also the League of Cities and Towns. And so the answer I would always give back then is like, well, they represent, the select board, or I'm a member of select board and they represent the select board as a whole. I'm a town clerk. So I've tried them, but they're not able to advise me because I'm in conflict with the town. So even within the advice they provide, there's kind of and services they provide, there's a hierarchy that we came to learn through the calls that were getting to our office.
Yeah, that makes sense. Question, Jim?
Getting back to the training that you're doing for municipalities, is there a depository of who's been trained, who's, done the online course? Or is that just left to each town? If I were a town resident, I want to check to see if my select board members have taken the training.
Sure. So we do have a repository. So we developed an online system. So we have 2 systems at the moment. So we have one for state employees and state officials who don't have access to the learning management system in the executive branch. So we have a training that is online for them. Those we record in a spreadsheet. There's maybe 100 people a year who take it that way. For municipal officials, we have a separate training system that we set up. And so when somebody takes training, they're asked to put in their basic information, their municipality, their title, and also the name of a third person within the municipality if they want a training notification to go to them. So they get an automatic training notification. They can put the name of a municipal official who might be tracking the training. So for example, in some municipalities found like the town clerk is tracking who's taking the training. That training can be sent to them automatically. But also if somebody called our office and wanted to know if somebody's taking the training, we could look at that.
Another question?
You know, so you said conservation districts were exempt for some reason?
Yeah, so, this was part of the negotiation of the bill. We argued for, a broader application of the statewide municipal code of ethics. School boards are also exempt, our school districts are also exempt. We thought it should apply, more broadly. Vermont League of Cities and Towns did not, so we ended up with a more narrow definition of municipality. I would say in our annual report, it's one of our areas of recommendation that we suggest in the future the legislature look at broadening it, not only, to whom the training requirement applies, but also the definition of municipality, because we have actually had several conservation districts or utility districts reach out to us, assuming that they were covered, subject to the municipal code of ethics. And we've had to tell them no. We've had several who have sent us their ethics liaison. So an ethics liaison was a requirement of the municipal ethics bill. Every town is appointing an ethics liaison. I think we have like close to 190 at this point. And so that role is someone who primarily serves as a point of communication for the Ethics Commission. So if we want to send out news, like when the training was posted online, we send the information to the ethics liaison. When we have in-person training, we'll let them know. When we have advisory opinions that relate to municipalities, we'll send those around to the ethics liaisons, and then they can send on the information to others. But we did have some, utility districts, fire districts, giving us the names of their ethics liaison, even though we did not ask them for them, assuming that they had to. So we had to tell them, no, you're not actually subject to the code of ethics.
Nice if they wanted to do it.
Yes. We have heard from a few who said, oh, this was going to solve some problems for us. I don't know if that's a widely held view, but we've heard it a couple of times.
Continue, please. Yeah.
So moving forward, I think essentially our budget request for this year really tracks what we were asking for, last year and every other year, except for our staffing request. So our budget request this year is for a total, before we get to the new positions we're requesting, it's a total of $223,000, $223,562. That essentially covers just our basic expenses and staffing, and that's it. I mentioned that when we started, we had one part-time executive director. Starting in 2022, I think it was, we added a part-time administrative assistant. Last year, given the increasing demand for our services over time, given the adoption of the state code of ethics and the increasing responsibilities as related to financial disclosures, we asked for additional staff, and we asked for additional staff before this committee. We neglected to do it when we had our meeting with the governor. So it was not part of our governor's request, because we knew that last year there was ethics legislation being considered that would substantially change our responsibilities in terms of municipalities. And so we didn't know if that was going to be taken up. We didn't know if it was going to pass. We didn't know if it was going to be involve municipalities. We also got investigation powers last year. So that was another big part of the bill. So we can now investigate complaints on a state level, not on a municipal level. We can hold hearings. We cannot enforce anything. We can make findings. But that is a significant new responsibility. We didn't know if any of that was going to go through, so it was not part of our request to the governor. We flagged it in our meeting with the governor last year, so that they would know that it was coming when it came time to actually ask for the new positions before this committee. I guess, it was too late. So we did not get those positions last year. And my understanding was because, we didn't make the request early enough. And as it happened, the legislative package involving municipal ethics and state ethics last year went through in its entirety, even more than we were even expecting. So even before that passed, we were already understaffed, and now we are even more understaffed. And so the way it was addressed last year is that some of the effective dates for the legislation that was passed last year were put off. For example, the municipal code of ethics didn't go into effect until January 1st, and the responsibilities associated with that. We have a little bit of money set aside, so we have taken on another kind of part-time contract attorney just to work a few hours a month on municipal issues. It's a local attorney in Montpelier who has experience with municipal issues. He hasn't started yet, but we have a little bit of money set aside for that person to help out with some extra responsibilities. That money will, of course, run out. So that's how we're managing the increased workload at this time. And then also, frankly, because I'm basically working full-time, even though it's a part-time job. So moving on to the next.
Two questions, Rep. LaRouche and then Rep. Ricky.
So you're giving advice and you have an attorney, so are you giving legal advice?
No. So we're giving guidance on how to comply with the law, but, we specifically say it's not legal advice. So for example, if you go to court, it's not going to be a shield saying we follow the law because we follow the Ethics Commission says. It's guidance on how to comply with the law. However, we are the entity that is responsible for administrating and interpreting the code of ethics. So it carries a lot of weight, what we say.
So just want to state for the record or make sure I'm hearing you right. We've expanded your responsibilities, but not your staff. You're the executive director, but you're not full-time?
Correct.
Okay. And we expanded your duties again?
Yes. So when I came onto Ethics Commission, my background, frankly, it's in policy work and politics. And so when I came on the Ethics Commission's primary request from me was to build the Ethics Commission, help, lobby for, legislation to be passed, make it into a real Ethics Commission, frankly. So when I came on, our responsibilities, frankly, it was only a few months where we had, fewer responsibilities, but I would say we get, one call every 3 weeks asking for ethics advice about just general topics. Then as soon as the state code of ethics passed, that's when the workload increased, and it passed. I came on in November. It passed and went into effect, I think, June 1st of that year. So it was a very brief period of time where the Ethics Commission was there to kind of be of just very general assistance to people. And honestly, there was very little work on the advice and guidance and complaint side of our role. What I was doing was basically legislative advocacy. And so we were going through a period where from, November to May, we're incredibly busy. I still, starting from the first year, I worked full-time from November to May. This is not my only job. I have another job. I work part-time in a law firm. And then I'd be very quiet in the summers. And so that really changed with the passage of the state code of ethics, but it more significantly with the passage of the legislative package last year. So we no longer have quiet summers or quiet times. Okay, so our request this year is to add a general counsel or a legal counsel position to the Ethics Commission. That is somebody who's going to be in charge of investigations primarily. Everyone kind of does everything, and also a staff attorney who is going to primarily be involved in municipal ethics. So that would be giving advice, advisory opinions, and also training.
Is this in your package here somewhere?
We sent it around earlier today. It's a separate PDF, so it was in our. It's not in there. It's a separate document.
It's on the website. It's on the website. Okay, thank you.
So it was a part of our initial governor's request and the request to the governor. But my understanding is that he did not request any new positions for anyone this year, pretty much. Our understanding from conversations with our office is that, their biggest problem with the ethics bill last year was that resources were not provided to us. And so my understanding is there's no, objection to us being provided with additional resources. I mean, of course, check that with them. But their feeling was because the legislature is the one who gave us these new responsibilities, it'd be up to the legislature to provide the money for the positions.
So I'm seeing it now. It has a general counsel and a staff attorney, and the total amount is $336. Okay. So that was on the committee page. Yes.
So this is essentially doubling the budget that you currently have.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's for, this is the basic level of the staff that we need to handle our current responsibilities. But again, I just want to make it clear that, we've had additional needs since, 2022.
And can I also ask, if you have an attorney, like you're requesting here, what recourse do they have? Let's say you have a community that, there's a complaint against. What recourse do you have? Whether they didn't take their training or whether there's what is believed to be a conflict, but what's your recourse as the Ethics Commission?
So as the Ethics Commission, we don't have enforcement powers. So right now, enforcement powers are left to the municipalities when it comes to municipal ethics. So right now, the way the statute reads is that municipal ethics complaints are referred back to the relevant municipality, which has to have an investigation procedure in place, and then they investigate the complaints. So when it comes to enforcement on that side, we don't have any role in that. When it comes to if somebody doesn't take the training, for example, municipalities can set higher standards, they can't set lower standards. So some municipalities are, saying, okay, only those who are required to take the training, take the training. Some are saying anyone who's subject to the municipal code have to take the training. Some are even expanding it further. Some are making people take it every year instead of every 3 years. It's a 3-year requirement. So the, enforcement mechanism for not taking the training is going to be different. So in the case where the person who didn't take the training is an employee, so they have a supervisor, that supervisor can say, okay, in terms of like our code of conduct, we consider this to be, violation of the code of conduct. You didn't follow state law on this issue, so they can, come up with the recourse. When it comes to an elected official, the only recourse, there's not a recourse set in statute, but for example, if a complaint is filed against an elected official, then probably the first question that's going to be asked is, did you take the training? And if the answer is no, and they did not take the training, willfully, if they said, I refuse to take the training, then they can consider that when they're considering the complaint and say like, okay, well, this is an inadvertent violation of the code of ethics. It was intentional. And so the municipality itself can take that into consideration. When it comes to what the legal counsel would be doing in our office, we do have investigatory powers when it comes to state complaints. So that is different from when it comes to the municipal code of ethics. And so that is what they would be involved in. There's still no enforcement, but they would be in charge of investigations. They're going to be in charge of like setting hearings. They're going to be in charge of, running the commission through the whole process and guiding the process. And so we have different things that can happen when we investigate a complaint. So at the most basic level, we have resolution agreements. So there are a number of situations where, complaint is filed against someone and it is a violation of the state code of ethics, but it could be inadvertent, right? It could be a mistake. It could be something low level. So what we would seek to do in that situation is, would you like to enter into a resolution agreement where we basically say, are you willing to, just agree you're not going to do this again and undergo some additional training that we would provide? And then we would have a written agreement. Then there are the more kind of egregious situations that could result in a, larger investigation. It can involve in hearings. I should say, I think it's important to know that the reason we got these investigatory powers last year, we did not ask for them. This was something that the legislature chose on its own to do. There's been a number of cases where there is no one to investigate ethics complaints. That includes, commissions, state commissions that are set up. That includes certain elected officials. Last year, we had some, cases that involve state's attorneys. So these are the kind of reasons why my understanding is this is why the legislature actually drafted this legislation themselves last year and decided to give this power to the Ethics Commission.
Couple of questions. So you can do investigations, you're gonna have an attorney to conduct investigations. No enforcement powers, but in the end, a municipality might have a civil suit perhaps. Or if it was criminal, I don't know how that would enter in, but then this investigation would help enforce inform that case, and then your attorney would then.
So we would have nothing to do with any investigations on the municipal level. This is only state
So on the
investigation.
state level, so you have an investigation, and then that's gonna go to where, to the, who gets to enforce it? If there's an investigation found out, is that the AG's office or?
So it depends on where they are sitting government. So there could be different parties responsible for the enforcement. So that's where we'd be making recommendations. So for example, there should be a fine. For example, you could have like a stop work order. So it really is going to depend on, the complaint, who the subject of the complaint is. So right now what we do is we refer complaints for investigation to the other branches of government. And so we would follow that line unless there's a situation where there's no one to refer the complaint to. And then we would end up in a situation where we're making public findings. And, this is after due process. This is after, a hearing. This is after an investigation. All the parties are involved in it. The respondent is involved in it. And so all that we can do is make those findings public.
So when you get to the decision-making process, whether it's legislature, the AG's office, wherever it might be, then your attorney would then be presenting the case, what your findings are.
Well, findings would be made public, but certainly if there's an enforcement authority in place, then we'd be having a direct discussion with the enforcement authority.
Just trying to make the intersection between, how your investigation would impact the authority that was going to find one way or the other on that. Whether you're part of the prosecution, or are you just informing the process, or?
Sure. So we're not proud of any prosecutions. So we're doing the investigation, making the findings. And so this is the experience that we've had so far. So we always are referring complaints to, different entities for investigation. Depending on the branch of government, depending on the specific entity, there's a different level of engagement. So for example, when it comes to the executive branch, they're the most engaged with us. And so, in our conversations with them, I don't want to be in a position where I'm speaking for other people, but I think the feeling is that, we're the ones who hold that knowledge of the state code of ethics and how to apply it. So we understand best what is a violation. They're used to, dealing with misconduct, employee misconduct, which is a different thing. And so I think that's true, generally speaking. If you're looking at the judicial branch, they have their own codes of conduct. So does the executive branch, but we understand how to apply it in the context of ethics and specifically the state code of ethics. And so we have a consultation requirement that is in the legislation that was passed last year. And this is a middle way. And this is a way that we planned, something we really planned on relying on in terms of furthering the uniform application of the state code of ethics without us being involved in investigations, but also making sure that there's a uniform understanding and a uniform application, which is only when we receive a complaint and refer it on, the receiving entity that's responsible for the enforcement consults back with us and says, you've seen the complaint, you know the facts, maybe we have some more facts we want to share with you. Do you think this is a violation? And then it's up to them to how they handle it. So even with the staffing request we're making here now, we still will be short-staffed. So what we envision is handling the really low-level ones when we can just enter into a resolution agreement, and the ones that are, very complicated and there's no one else that can hear those. And then most of them we're hoping will be resolved through this consultation requirement, where they're still being, primarily investigated by the existing entity that's assigned to handle the complaint, but in consultation with us, so at least everyone understands at the same level what a violation of state code of ethics is.
Do we have other questions? So we have a specific request and we have a copy of that. This is yours, right? So we have more questions. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us before we wrap up?
I'd like to just say, I think if we compare us to, similar entities, the Human Rights Commission, for example, like we are very short-staffed, even when we compare to, Vermont state government, when we compare ourselves to, or, even just New England ethics commissions, for us compared to Rhode Island, they have, about 15 staff members. So we're very short-staffed compared to pretty much every other ethics commission that's out there, particularly when you consider we do all three branches of government. And so when we're comparing to Rhode Island, they do all three branches of government plus municipalities. So that's the situation that we are in now. And we're also just very short-staffed considering the responsibilities we're given when we started up compared to now. So really, we've gotten to a point where it's almost impossible to be doing the work that we're doing with the staff that we have. The only reason we're able to cover it is because I do work 40 hours a week, plus 5 hours a week at my other job, and it's just not sustainable for the long run.
And so tell me the difference between the general counsel and the staff. What the staff counsel, you have two different positions.
Yeah,
It's kind of like they're attorneys. And then Mike, you have a question.
Sure. So the staff attorney will be handling investigations at the state level, and we want to have somebody specifically assigned to handle municipal issues. So we plan to have the staff attorney handle municipal issues and also give trainings, particularly on the municipal level.
And the general counsel is handling everything else?
Investigations.
Investigations.
Yeah, primarily be assigned to investigations and state complaints. I mean, everyone, it's not going to be you're only doing this all the time, but the idea is that person would primarily be handling state level investigations. The staff attorney will be handling training and municipal ethics, and then I'll be continuing to do everything that I do, which is have my hands in everything all the time.
I just wanted to amplify the situation that, they were challenged to meet what we asked them to do to start with. And then we expanded that without extra staff. So I think there's a good case that could be made that either we lower their expectations or give them the staff they need to do the job that we're asking them to do.
And I would vote against lowering the expectations, because I really do think, I understand that. I just think we've worked really hard as a state to get to where we are when it comes to the ethics framework. I mean, we really started out at the bottom when it comes to, nationally, and we're slowly creeping up there. We're like reaching towards the middle, but especially given, frankly, what's going on in the country right now, I think rolling anything back would send the wrong message to the public.
Rebecca Boney.
You may have mentioned it, but when calls come in, do you do first come, first serve? Or do you have a way to triage so you can rank the inquiries and follow them up accordingly?
Well, So there's only me to answer all the inquiries and I answer them as they come in. I think when it comes to response time, and we always try to give same day responses. So it doesn't come to a situation where we're like, well, this one we're going to answer next week and this one we'll answer now. I mean, I answer them very quickly. The only time we would not answer someone very quickly, I mean, we'd always give them some kind of answer is if we had to do like a little bit of research, but I would let them know, we're going to need to research this and then come back to you in a few days, something like that.
Hey, I don't see any more questions. Thank you both very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As your liaison.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Okay, we have one more for the day, and that's the Public Service Department. And did you say they're online, Erin? So we will go right to the Public Service Department. And you should have a handout on them as well. And we have Tiffany and Patricia. Have you come to this year? And I asked you because we'll introduce ourselves if you haven't.
I
Good
have not
afternoon.
testified in this committee.
This
I
year?
have not.
Why don't we go around the room and introduce ourselves?
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Iacovoni. I live in Morrisville and I represent the Lamoille, Washington district. Welcome.
Yep. Good afternoon and welcome. John Kosenska from Burke, and I represent the Essex Caledonia District.
Hi, Mike Nigro. I represent Bennington and Powell.
Tom Stevens from Waterbury, representing the Washington Chittenden District.
Good afternoon, Jim Harrison from the town of Chip.
Robin Shy from Middlebury.
Tiff Bloomley from Burlington.
Trevor Squirrel is not here, but he's from Underhill and Jericho.
Wayne and Rush represent Highgate, Franklin, Berkshire, and Richford.
Hi, I'm Mike Merwicki from the Indian Ford District of Putney Dummerston and a member of the Friday Morning Basketball Caucus. And Brittany, we miss you.
I'm Lynn Dickinson. I represent St. Albans Town.
Great. So if you two would like to introduce yourselves for the record and take it away, please.
Great. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect.
fine.
Brittany Wilson, Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Public Service. I'll let Patty introduce herself.
My name is Patricia LaRose, or Patty, as you heard Brittany say. I am the financial manager for the Department of Public Service.
Great.
Well, thanks for having us in. I'll start by saying I am in my third week over at the department. And so please bear with me if we can't answer any of your questions today. Happy to follow up and get you more information. But we can jump right into things. I think you all have our handout and our budget overview that was prepared. Would you like us to share slides, or you all have that in front of you?
Does everybody have the slides? I think we're good. Thank you.
Great. Without going through all of the slides, there's a lot there. I think there's a lot of context and history that folks are feel free to take a look through as convenient and follow up with any questions. But just kind of generally speaking, maybe for some of the new legislators, and apologies if you're already aware of this, but just kind of high level overview. The department represents the public interests in all energy, telecommunications, water, wastewater, utility matters. We serve citizens through the public advocacy, planning, programs, and other actions that meet the public's needs for least cost, environmentally sound, efficient, reliable, secure, sustainable, and safe energy, telecommunications, and regulated utility systems in the state. We've provided our org chart if that's something everybody is interested. We've also included some highlights of each of the divisions that we have. And again, feel free to take a look at those details and let us know if you have any questions in any of those specific areas. But I think maybe to jump into things, there's a few slides around federal funding. I'm sure that folks have some questions around kind of our posture in that area. And we're happy to try to answer some of those questions. But maybe to start with, I'll just say, the department is not reliant on general funds. We are a special fund department entirely, getting most of that from the gross receipts tax. And then there's obviously federal dollars, interdepartmental funds, bill backs, and the Clean Energy Development Fund. We also get some base federal, I think I just mentioned this, some base federal funding that we rely on year over year. That's a fairly small amount. Obviously, the one-time federal grants are a much larger amount that I'm sure folks have some questions around. But maybe we can just jump into the ups and downs of our budget and then take questions from there, if that's helpful.
So back to the federal funding, maybe on pages 12 and 13. So we're talking about starting on page 14? Or do you have another?
Yes. Yep, so that kind of just shows the breakdown, the percentage of our total budget based on special, federal, interdepartmental, et cetera. If you're looking for all of the federal grants and programs, slide 18 kind of shows the larger list of dollars and those federal dollars and programs.
So those are money over a period of time, but
Correct.
we don't know where you are in. So the first one is 3 years energy efficiency. It says 3 years. Are you in year 2? Or are you just starting?
We were debating whether or not to put all of the information in there. It started to make kind of a messy slide for you all.
Yeah.
So kept it at a fairly high level. If helpful, maybe that's something we could follow up with to kind of show that in more detail. But again, high level, speaking about all of these funds, I will just say that as we all know, some of the decisions at the federal level have left folks in kind of a limbo. Certainly our department, we've got some fairly large grants and programs that we're looking and seeking and hoping to run that are questionable right now. So one of the things that we're working on at the department is a risk assessment of all of these federal dollars, where we are specifically in each of these programs, and plotting out what the workflow looks like. So what we're trying to decide is how far along can we move forward? At what point are those decisions going to impact state dollars if we decide to keep moving forward? And make some recommendations to the administration on whether or not is there a stopping point? What's that stopping point? And if we don't, what could it potentially cost us if we have to pick up the tab? So that's kind of overall like a general assessment we're doing on each of these.
Okay. And are these mostly reimbursable grants, or is it a formula? Or does it depend?
It's a bit of a mixed bag. They're a little bit of each.
Okay. Yeah, Wayne.
So essentially they're pass through grants, but do you have a certain percentage or something that you can use for operations or operations of the department? How does that work?
Yeah, Patty, do you want to speak to that more? And it might differ depending on the program.
Yes, it certainly does depend on the federal award. Some are as high as 20% can be used for administrative costs. Some are as low as 5%.
Thank you.
But we do try to keep some of it for our administrative costs.
I will just say, to add on to that, some of our employees are 100% federally funded. So even though it might be only a portion of a grant, there's, the breakdown of employee salaries, it varies too, from a portion to 100%.
Good. Thanks.
Okay. So what page do you want to go to?
We can jump down to page 21 and I'll pass it over to Patty to talk about the ups and downs.
Okay, so starting with slide 21, our ups and downs form. The first section is ups and downs of salaries, benefits. You've seen that through all of the departments that you've already held testimony from. And you can see here that we are all funded mostly with special funds. The workers' comp has gone up. Vacancy savings is increasing. We knew this year we have a deputy in Brittany, a temporary employee. We are seeing a decrease in contractual work, and that is to more align our budget to actual expenditures.
So I'm sorry, which line was that?
The contractual, it's a down.
Oh, yes.
Yep. Of 125,000.
Okay. So your vacancy savings, how many positions is that assuming are vacant?
It includes the 3 clean heat positions.
Go ahead.
Did you say that clean heat positions?
Yes, it includes that vacancy savings number includes the 3 clean heat positions.
And how many positions is that?
The clean heat, we have 3.
You have 3, so that 3.
So 3, and I believe I figured another 1.
So all 3 clean heat positions are vacant. And
Okay,
there's
and-
one additional position that's vacant.
Yes, that is correct.
So I guess what I read is the assumption is you're not planning to, or you're not budgeting to keep those positions. And are there individuals serving in those positions today?
We are not budgeting for the positions. I don't know that there are, it's a good question on whether or not they go away. They're not budgeted for, but whether or not those positions are removed, I'm not sure the mechanics of that. I will ask.
Okay. And then separate line.
Was that?
Oh, hang on a second. Aaron, what does that all mean? Hang on a sec, we're getting, now it looks like we're all right. Try again. I'm sorry.
Okay. Is that better? You can hear me?
We just got some weird language up on our screen that sounded like we couldn't hear anybody, so we can hear you.
Oh, good, good. So then you go to slide 22.
Well, I wanted to ask you about the new deputy commissioner. Why is that separate and not part of salary and wages? And is it a brand new position?
We had included that position as part of our vacancy savings in prior years. So it is, although we had the position, we never filled it. It is a new filled position under this commissioner.
It was vacant when Riley was appointed to the PUC. So it's been vacant since 2021.
Oh. Okay. Okay. So before we go off to your next pages, I have a note about it. We do not have pages 23 through 38, but they're in the posted version. We just didn't get them printed. So if you're looking, those are all really detail-oriented ones. I guess we have 22.
Yes, and then from 23 to, what was the last page you said?
38.
38. Those are all the standard reports out of Vantage.
Right, which we don't, unless there's, I mean, this is sort of the roll-up of that, right? These 2 pages.
Correct.
So we don't need I don't think we need the real detail of all of those unless there's something from these 2 pages that you wanted to highlight for us.
No, everything I wanted to highlight, I pulled out and put on the ups and downs.
Okay, okay. So this, John, is this your budget?
Yes.
Okay, John will look at all the detail pages and we'll look at these 2 pages. So what's the EPSD upgrade for 830,000?
That is a database that the department shares with the PUC. It's it's all the rate cases are filed in there, and the department shares in that.
So these are about rate cases?
Yes, there's more in it. And I am not the one to talk about the nitty gritty of that.
Okay,
That is my understanding, is that it is a database for rate increases.
okay.
Generally high level, it's a case management software system, and it tracks all the docket activity related to any and all cases.
Okay. Thank you. Not seeing other questions at the moment.
Okay, so going down from there, we have other ADS and IT costs, travel, use of the department's indirect rate, and other operating costs.
Any questions on that from anybody? Okay.
Okay, so in total, we are requesting a special fund spending authority of 12.1 million and a total all-in budget of 15.4 million. Which
So the
is,
special fund is about a 10% increase?
yes, it's just over, it's almost a 1.1 million increase over last
Yeah.
year.
Right. The database, is that database new?
No, but it is time to upgrade it. They are currently receiving bids, and last I knew they were receiving questions about the bids.
Is ADS running that project?
Yes, they are. I don't know if they're running it, but they are involved in it.
Okay. A little bit more about that, because sounds like something new. Yes, Wayne.
So the question is for the ADS upgrade, is that planning at this point in time? Is that money for planning? Or for the actual upgrade, programming or purchasing of software?
It would be a contractual service. So that would, we're hoping to be under contract in FY26. So
Okay.
I would expect it to be a actual expense, not just a plan.
So it doesn't sound like a typical
So-
IT project.
I would guess they're planning, they're gonna be entering into a contract to create this software, but they'd have to be doing a lot of planning, I would assume. They'd have to be looking at your systems and databases, what you're gonna need to do that before
Is
they
this
actually build
is this
it.
an off-the-shelf thing, or is this something that you already have and you're just upgrading, like version
Yeah.
2.0?
So you're
It's kind of more like
upgrading
that.
something.
Okay.
Yes,
Thanks.
we already have it. It is time to do an upgrade.
Okay. Okay. Maybe a quick question with ADS. Okay. Is there anything else you all would like us to know? Not seeing anything. Any questions from this committee? These folks?
I
Okay.
will say that if you have further questions, please reach out to either Brittany or I, and we'll make sure to get back to you.
That sounds great. And Rep. Kasanska is the liaison with this committee, so we will funnel questions we have through him.
I'll be in touch so we can follow up just a bit more details here, just to understand timing of all this. So
absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And I'm sure we will see you around.
Good luck, Brittany.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. 3 weeks. That's great. Okay,
Take care.
committee, that is what we have for the day. Tomorrow is A&R Day. It is. Looks like, starting at 9. And then in the afternoon, we have the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. And then at 3:45 tomorrow afternoon is the legislature request public hearing. It's when we invited legislators. So we have 45 minutes at 3:45 tomorrow afternoon, and we have pretty much filled up the time slots.
Just 45?
3 minutes a legislator. That's tomorrow afternoon. You'll get to watch it. You can listen to it on your way back. Yeah.
Can we sign up?
You want to sign up? I think you could talk to us anytime. So each legislator will have up to 3 minutes to talk about however many requests they want to talk about, but they have 3 minutes.
So is there a schedule of folks?
And those are, Erin is in charge. Yeah, she'll share all the names. So, Mike?
I think we ought to let Jim testify, because then we can pepper him with questions.
Thing is that we don't do that at a public hearing. We don't just say thank you very much.
You could make an exception.
He could go last and then we could go till 6 or something with Jim, yeah. Well, you can submit written testimony.
No, we can tell him joke if he doesn't come up with a plan. Stay.
We can think of all kinds, aren't you glad you asked?
I know.
All right, so we will be on tomorrow.